How was your day today? Good day?
The day?
Yeah.
Fantastic day. We got snow today.
Dude, we have the craziest weather here.
We got snow today.
Tornadoes last night.
No,
it's 80 degrees yesterday. Then tornadoes.
We almost played golf yesterday. It was too windy.
Then tornadoes. And then snow today.
And then Thursday, we're going fishing. And it's supposed to be 75 again.
Oh, shorts.
It's going to be beautiful.
Shorts in the river?
Shorts in the river. Shorts in the Duck River.
I love it.
You know what I was thinking about?
What's that?
I feel like there's a conversation you and I have regularly that we should just go ahead and call out for anyone that's watching today.
Okay.
And it is what our pre-shoot text messages to each other are in the mornings. Hey,
man, I'm wearing a white sweater with an ALD hat and some Sambas. What are you wearing? And you're like, well, I actually had on a white sweater.
He texted me that I'm wearing a white sweater ALD hat today. And I said, I've already left my house. I'm also wearing a white sweater and I have an ALD hat in my bag as well. Let me see if I have another one and I'll wear a jacket.
I want to know the psychology behind that. Like, what is it? Because sometimes my wife and I'll come out of the bathroom or whatever and I'm dressed and she's like, really? We're wearing the same thing today? Yeah. And it happens all the time.
Beth and I on Friday, I had to change because we were both wearing the same outfit. Here's what I think it is. You and I had this conversation last week. Outside of our wives, outside of my wife, the person I spend the most time with is you.
Yeah, we church together, work together. We have hobbies that we...
Yeah. So I think we're together so often. And the same thing with your wife. You're just with them so often that your mind, I don't know, if you just become more like each other.
I used to be like that with one of my mentors. I would... I don't know, I didn't make the conscious decision, but I found myself kind of purchasing... clothing items like them. I'm like, wait, this isn't who I am. What am I doing? I don't know. There's got to be some kind of psychology around it.
Yeah. So if we ever show up on a podcast wearing the exact same thing, it's just because we didn't have any backups and we didn't text each other that morning.
No backups. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I'm excited for it. Today's part 2 to a podcast episode that we released earlier. The one we released previous was, what does your boss want to say to you? Kind of unpacking, are there hidden tensions that happen in a working dynamic. Yep. That oftentimes want to be said but go unsaid.
Yeah.
And
that happens all the time.
Today, I think we're doing the inverse of that a little bit.
Little part 2.
It's not what your boss wants to say to you, but what does your employee want to say to you?
One of and I don't want to recap the whole thing, but one of the things with part 1 that I got great feedback from was some leaders of the organization. They hit me up. They're like, hey, can you send me notes on that point about being coachable but not offendable? So obviously it resonated a bit and it was helpful. So I'm excited about today. I think this would be a good topic. It would be helpful. I want to make sure that today we don't just kind of call out some of the things, but we also give those really practical tools so that people can feel equipped. So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
I think that there's one of the reasons I wanted to unpack it is because I think that there's oftentimes things that you feel working in an organization that you want to say, but you might not have the language to put to it. Or know, if I say this, is it going to come across sounding odd? Yeah. So I think that there's reasons that we feel things sometimes and don't say it. I think it can often come because we just don't want conflict. You're my boss. I don't want you to feel like that there's some thing that I have against you. I like my job. I want to keep my job. I want the paycheck. But I don't want to say something and stir up conflict. Yeah. So I think that's one reason people would feel that.
You know what I thought of when you said that? What? Have you ever heard that old saying, the wheel that squeaks gets oiled or replaced? Yeah. So I think for this particular topic today, we're talking about the subordinate, the staff member or whatever, what they want to say to their boss. So there's probably some of that, if I squeak about this, it could get taken care of, could get oiled, or I could be replaced. I could be rejected. I could be, just whatever. My influence, it gets diminished because I say this. So there's some legitimate concerns and fears I think that people have.
Yeah. I think people also value loyalty, and they don't want to feel like just because I'm saying something to you means that I'm not loyal to this cause or this mission or this organization.
It's good.
And they might not feel safe enough to say it as well. And so the other thing that I hope is helpful from this conversation is that on the other side of it, there's better leaders creating better work environments for the people that they lead. Yeah. And I think it can be hard to know, like, am I leading people well? What are they really feeling? And hopefully this can help to mitigate some of that and put language to the leaders' vocabulary as well as they're leading their teams.
I had a thought. What do you think if a leader wanted to watch both episodes with their team in the room?
I think it'd be cool.
It'd be great. Just thought of that.
You'd probably have some honest conversations.
Maybe there's a part 3. I don't know. Well, let's jump in.
Let's do it. There's, I think, 5 things here that we want to unpack. Things that your employee wants to say to you, but they won't. First one is, I don't know what success looks like.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times, everyone that I've worked with, it's the exception rather than the norm that someone doesn't want to do a great job.
Yeah.
They want to do good with whatever they've been entrusted with.
Yeah.
But they just need to know what clarity looks like.
Yeah. What's the scoreboard?
Yeah. What does winning here actually look like? And what do you want the end result of this to be?
Imagine if you played on a sports team. You're a baseball player, you're a football player, basketball player, and there was no clear score board or clear scorecard. The game, it's the endless game. Like it just, and it's probably pretty discouraging.
Yeah.
Like, all this effort is being exerted here. The time I'm spending to play this game, and I don't even know if I'm winning or not.
Yeah.
That's demoralizing, I would say, right?
Yeah. I worked for this company, and they ran off of annual metrics, essentially. And so for every year, you would have, this is what is expected of you to be able to have a good performance review. And halfway through the year, they changed the metrics of success, but didn't tell anyone.
Oh, wow.
Until it came up informally in a conversation. And so you can imagine the surprise when literally 6 months through the year, what we thought was a scoreboard and what winning looked like actually would have failed you compared to what it was now. And it was never communicated. And the frustration that people had on the team saying, if I would have known that's what it was, I would have planned my work differently. Yeah. I would have had different behaviors because I was aiming for X and you changed it to Y. Yeah. And so it created a moment of chaos and confusion and also frustration and distrust. Yeah. Whenever the scoreboard was changed and it was not communicated to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. You think about it when the expectations are unclear, like there's a default, right? There's going to be a default. And I think as an employee, the default's going to be guessing, overworking, anxiety, maybe even playing it safe, too safe. So you're not going to advance really what you're trying to do because you just don't know what's the win. Yeah. What's success. Yeah. I don't think any of those characteristics of themselves are going to produce great leadership or great team members. So.
Yeah. Or the things that you want. I think that where I've seen this come across a lot is in the creative process, is if you're working with part of what we do with Sidecar Creative Labs and doing branding designs for organizations. And you have those leaders that they don't really know what they want. So they don't really give you direction.
Oh, I've got a case study right now.
Our designers will bring something to them and they're unhappy with it, but they never gave clear inspiration on the front end of things.
Remember the client, we had a client one time that didn't really give any clarity. And so one of our really lead designers, phenomenal designer, crushes it with every client that we have, brought some three great comps and pitched them and like us, and not just us as the founders, but also the other organizations that they were working with were like, we would take any of those 3 designs. They're amazing. And the client came back and said, nope, that's not it. Yeah. And our designer said, okay, what do you not like about it? And they're like, I don't know. I just don't like it.
You just need to rework it.
What do you like about it? I don't know, but you just got to figure it out. And I remember just how, paralyzing it was for that creative, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm here to serve you and serve your vision, but if I don't know what that vision is, I'm not going to be able to accomplish it. It was so frustrating for them. And unfortunately, that wasn't the best client relationship. But, I think it's not just there. Like, we do it. I've done it before.
Yeah, we're all guilty of it.
We all do it. And I think the thing you want to give is you want to give clarity. Yeah. What's the win? What's the vision? What does success look like? Yeah. What are we aiming at? What's the target? I think one of the things we find ourselves talking about probably almost every time we get together is the greatest thing you can give to the people you lead is what?
Clarity.
Clarity. Give them clarity. What's the win? What's success? What does vision look like?
Yeah. I love Brian Cromer. We've had him on the podcast. He's a great
friend
and someone that I think we look up to as a leader. And he said this, clear vision is better than big vision. And I think it's tempting that oftentimes you want to create this big grand vision to inspire people to rally around, which is great and that is needed. But if that big vision is a question mark and people don't know what it actually means to move forward from there, I think it's a miss. Again, what we always say is clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So with whatever it is that you're expecting, how can you make sure that you're giving the right level of clarity? I also think that different people in the organization need different levels of clarity. So if let's say you're a CEO talking to a member of your executive team, I don't think that when you're talking to that executive team member, you need to tell them every step of the way.
Right.
The level of clarity that they need is probably just what the outcome should be. And the rest is on them to figure out because of where they're at in the organization. Whereas if you're talking to someone that's newer in their career, it's probably not just what that needs to be done, but maybe more of the clarity of how it needs to be done as well, so that it matches your organization's culture and tempo as well. And so I think that's one thing to think through is that different levels do require different levels of clarity. But at the end of the day, what is the clarity that I need to give this person so that they can win?
Is your team ready to thrive? Do they have the resources and clarity that they need to succeed? In our team coaching sessions, we provide the tools and principles needed to drive health and growth, and most importantly, clarity in your organization. We believe that clarity brings the confidence to lead effectively. So many times we're too close to the problems to see them correctly. And through coaching, we're able to bring objectivity and no emotional attachment to help you see your organization clearly. Together, we'll develop a strategic path that empowers your team to implement best practices and take on new challenges with confidence. Let's unlock your team's potential. Want to learn more? Head over to sidecarleader.com/coaching and let's talk about your goals and how we can help you accomplish them.
Let's talk about what are some practical takeaways that a leader that maybe finds that they're kind of falling short in this area. What are some things that they could do, some practical tools?
Yeah, I think one of the things is just take a step back and say, what are the expectations that I have that I haven't clarified or communicated yet?
Yeah.
And if there is an expectation that you have around something, just making sure the person on the other side of it knows things.
Oh, yeah.
And just taking a beat yourself to make sure you know what you want that to be. I think some of the things that I would look at is like, what does success look like? That's going to be different on every project. If it's, operations versus creative versus marketing, like success is going to look different in all those. But do you have a clear picture of what success looks like?
Let me call out something with that real quick, because I think I want to speak to churches, not so much. And this could happen in nonprofits and in companies, but oftentimes with churches do a lot of events, right? And so the question is, what made that event successful? At most churches we've worked with, it's the amount of people that showed up at the event.
And how did it feel?
And what I know is you can have an event feel good, look good, and gather a lot of people. But at the end of the day, if that was your only metric of success, and maybe at times that is okay of a metric of success, but I think being a little bit more strategic and saying this was actually the goal of the event, not just to get the most amount of people in a room that feels good, but we clearly pointed them to this next step, and we got more small group leader signups. That's the metric of success, right?
Yeah.
Having some concrete metrics like that, knowing that we're not just doing random events, random things, hosting random gatherings with no clear scoreboard. I think one of the greatest things we do is give that clear scoreboard. Like, how will we know at the end of this conference or this youth camp or whatever that we won?
Yeah.
How will we know that? Well, it's going to be because this outcome
took this
happened.
step. Yeah, that's great. So I think what does success look like, and are there expectations you have that you haven't communicated yet? When is it due? I think that's an important one.
Yes,
like
Lord.
When do we, and it can be at the executive level, we have this outcome of, reaching a certain number of people or a certain number of sales, and we want to see it by this time. creating a date, even if you don't have a date, just having an agreed upon false deadline, I think is important.
It gives a sense of urgency.
It does. And just accountability behind the work. And then I think the third thing I would say is what matters most.
This is a great one.
Because there's different things that you and I can both be working on the same project. You might be optimizing for we need to get this done really fast. And I might be thinking this needs to have great quality. So you're going to rush through and get it done fast. I might sit on it longer because I'm thinking quality. So what is the factor that needs to happen with it? Is it speed? Is it quality? Is it creativity? Yep. What is the factor that as we're doing this, we need to optimize for? Is it budget? So what is the factor that we want to optimize for as we're doing this as well? And I think that's one that gives extreme clarity to the people.
I think that's great. Here, let me drop this second one. I love this one. This is one of the things that your staff member, your employee, your subordinate, they want to tell you this. Okay, here it is. I want feedback now, not blow up later. I want feedback now, today. Give me some feedback because I don't want it to catch me off guard, in 2 months, in 6 months at my annual review. And you never told me this. And I've been, just frustrating the fire out of you for the last 9 months. And you just never told me. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
I mean, there's nothing worse than when and it's probably happened to all of us, when you get into an argument with your spouse or with a friend and they start referencing things that happened 9 months ago, a year ago. And you're like, I had no clue that even happened.
Yeah.
I know oftentimes organizations will have performance reviews, and there's nothing, I don't think that there could be a worse meeting than sitting down at that performance review and realizing that your boss is telling you things that you've been doing wrong for 9 to 12 months without giving you the opportunity to correct those in the meantime. Yeah. And so I think being able, you say this all the time, keep a short list.
Yeah,
keep a short list of people, with the people around you, of things that they have done wrong or that are bothering you, and just address it in the moment.
Yeah, I was thinking about, there was this great staff that I was a part of for so many reasons, developed a lot of my leadership and who I am today. But one of the things that was sort of a deficiency in the organization was there wasn't really a feedback loop. And there wasn't really regular managerial meetings or what we would call relational oversight meetings. There wasn't a rhythm of that. And they also didn't have an annual review. You really only got coached up if you did something really wrong, and it like cost money or, face or whatever. And so I carried that into the second organization I worked for. But this organization was just the opposite. Like they had a feedback culture, and they also did it. I know they did an annual review. They may have even done like quarterly reviews. Yeah. And I remember the first time I sat down to do this review for this staff member of mine, and as it was guiding me through all the questions, I found myself making a lot of comments for feedback. And then there was a moment where I just felt gross as a leader. Like, you know what? I've never talked to this staff member about any of these things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go in and drop a bomb. I'm going to crush her spirit.
Yeah.
She may even quit if she hears all these things. And I remember I just had to stop it and didn't even give the review. I waited and went and had a conversation. And I actually apologized to this person and said, I realize that there's been things that I haven't done my job. I took the onus and responsibility. I haven't done my job in developing you and coaching you. That role was actually a pastoring role. I haven't done my job in pastoring you. And it would be completely unfair to you, and it would be wrong for me to give you this feedback because I've failed to do my job.
Yeah.
You haven't failed to do your job. I've actually failed to do my job.
Yeah.
And it was a little embarrassing, a little humbling for me, but I made a decision moving forward. I was going to build some type of rhythm where I would keep a shorter tally where if there was something bothering me or frustrating me, they're showing up late for work, they're not, they're messing up my calendar or whatever, that I would have that conversation, just say, hey, this is the pattern, this is what's happening. Help me understand. Hey, moving forward, how can we change that? And then coach them up. And then that way, by the time it gets to annual review, you don't have, all these hand grenades that you're dropping on the person.
Yeah. I think that's great. I know I've said this before, like the friends that I feel the safest around are the friends that I know if something comes up, if there's beef between us, they're going to tell me. They're not going to let it sit. And I think the same is true for the leaders that I feel the safest around are the leaders where I know that if I do something that's not great or that it could have been better, or again, it just isn't meeting expectations, they're going to let me know that. Yeah. You've done that so well. And I feel like we've built that into the culture of Sidecar and Citizens that we're building. Yeah. Whereas if we didn't have some kind of conversation, if 2 weeks went by and we didn't have some kind of conversation like that, I'd be like, are we good here? Do we need it? Yeah. Not because we're looking for things, but just we've gotten to the point now where we're comfortable to give feedback. And it is part of our culture of doing that as well.
What do you think that breeds in the culture when and the feeling that, or the perception that staff member has if you as a leader have gone silent?
Well, I think that we've used this analogy before. Whenever there's a gap, our brains are wired to fill the gap.
Yeah.
If you think of the Wheel of Fortune,
my wife loves Wheel of Fortune.
Same, I grew up watching it. The reason that I think that game show works so well is because there are gaps and our brains are wired to fill in the gaps. So if there's a gap in your performance, you're either probably going to think you're doing much better than you think you are, or undervaluing yourself and thinking you're doing worse than you think you are. Yeah. And I think when that happens and then you come in with the bomb, it can actually breed uncertainty. It can breed distrust, distance, or even disengagement from the organization as well. So that's why I think it's so important to just be able to have those conversations, give the feedback. I think oftentimes we don't because we would rather be kind to the person. And we think by not having the conversation we're being kind, when really I think facing that uncomfortable moment, having the conversation with the person is one of the most kind things that you can do. Talk about this. I know that you're really big on like a one-on-one oversight.
Yep.
How does that play into being able to give feedback on a regular basis? And are there any questions that you ask yourself when you're having an oversight with someone?
Yeah, for sure. So I think you should have a managerial one-on-one meeting, which we call relational oversight meetings. We say, you should only be overseeing 5 to 8 people max. It's kind of the ideal world. And it would be ideal if you can have a weekly one-on-one for at least 45 minutes with an individual. I have a framework and I'm not robotic with this, but I do have a framework. It just works for me. Maybe it's the pastor background. I've got 4 C's. The first one is care. That sort of is a box that I check off. Like I want to make sure, that sounds bad to say check off, but it's in my mind. Like I want to make sure that I hit this. Is I'm going to ask you, if it's you, I'm going to ask you questions about the things that I know you care about. Like, man, how are you and Laura Beth doing? Or, man, how's that side project that you're working on? And I'm trying to communicate a value that I don't just care about what you do for Sidecar or for the church. I care about what you care about. And I think that builds some equity with the person that you're trying to lead. So the first one is care. The second one is cover. And I'll ask questions like, hey, is there anything I need to know that I don't know? That could be something personally that's happening in your life if you feel comfortable to share it. That could be something that's happening in the organization that you've been dreading to tell me about, but we're way over budget in a particular area and it's sort of your fault or it's someone's fault that you missed or whatever. And you're like, but it gives you the opportunity to bring that up and then we can, let's solve this problem together. The third one is coach. I used to say correct. I thought that was a little sharp, but the third one is coach. Is there an area that I need to coach Nathan up or this team member up that's going to make them better and make our organization better? Another way I ask in my mind is like, is there a pattern? Because if there's a pattern, there's a problem. If it's a bad pattern, then I need to talk about it. I don't need to keep that long tally and wait, 2 more months. But like, is there something that you're not doing I wish you'd start doing? Or is there something that you're doing that I wish you'd stop doing?
I think say those 2 questions again, because I think those are great questions.
Yeah, is there something that you're not doing that I wish you would do? And then the flip of that, the converse, is there something that you're doing that I wish you would stop doing?
Yeah, that's great.
And so I kind of ask those questions in my head and I try to generate some conversation around it. And you know this, and you can say it as proof. There's not like, it's not like every week I'm having to like confront or correct and that's why I changed it to coach. It's like, I'm trying to ask myself, is there a moment where I can add value to Nathan?
That's great.
And coach him up. I'm not calling him out. I'm coaching him up in this particular area here. And then the last one's communicate. That's where we're communicating our work related stuff. Yeah. And like, what do you need from me? What do you need from me to succeed? Is there any area that you need some clarity around what this win looks like in this area? But I think it is really important to ask, at least in your mind, ask yourself, is there something that I need to say in this meeting that needs to be said? Because a great leader is not going to be silent. Yeah. Leaders, by definition, they speak up when other people are scared to speak up. Yeah. And so get over yourself, get over your insecurity as a leader, get over this feeling of I'm pseudo peace. I'm trying to keep peace and just the value is I've been put in this role as a leader to steward this person, to develop this person, and to call this person to a higher level. And so that's kind of the way that the framework that I use at least. I know we had someone give us some pushback on that once on Instagram, and they were like, this is just too robotic, this, that, whatever, and no one does that. You know what, man? I've worked for many organizations, and the organization that I learned that from was the healthiest environment I'd ever worked in, and that's why I'm such a believer in it. Like it was the environment that developed me more than any other environment, and so I'm really passionate about it.
That's great. I love it. All right, number 3. What does your employee want to say to you that they aren't? I love this one. I think this is great. You hired me, but you still do my job.
Oh.
In other words, you hired me, but you don't seem to trust me. And your micromanagement is choking the joy out of my job.
I think that's key right there, because you can still do the job, but lose all joy in doing the job because you feel like there's a stranglehold on you and the things that you're responsible for.
Yeah. I think that there are few things worse in the workplace than having to work for someone who is a micromanager.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just makes you feel...
Tell me how you really feel, Nathan.
It just makes you feel like you can't get it right.
Yeah.
Or like the outcome might be the same. We're both trying to get to the pizza joint, but because you went right and I went left and it took the same amount of time, your way was some way higher than mine.
Yeah.
And you venerate your way over the way I got there.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah. You know, there was a framework that one of my mentors told me about: hands-on, hands-off, hands-in. Remember that? He said there's 3 different types of ways that you can lead the people that you're leading. Hands-on is where you're
micromanagement.
It's micromanagement. You're choking out the leadership of that person. You're crippling their leadership. You're taking away any empowerment that's there. You're hands-on. So think both hands on. Then there's hands-off. That's the abdicating leader. That's the one that's like, here's your job, go do it. And
they're not around when you need them.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're just hands off.
It's swinging the pendulum almost too far from the micromanagement.
Both are wrong.
Yeah.
Hands on and hands off, both wrong. The better way is hands in. And the idea is that I have one hand over here by you, not to slap your hand, but I want you to know I'm here to support you, but I trust you.
Yeah.
I have a hand in this with you, and I'm not leaving you on your own to figure this out. If you need some help, I'm here to support you. I'm here to strengthen the assignment that you're doing. And I think that's the better way to lead.
Yeah.
Where you're giving people enough space to do things maybe even different than you. We've agreed upon the outcome, like you said.
Yeah.
And I maybe wouldn't do it that way, but it's okay. Like this is your job, and I hire you to do this job.
Yeah.
Like if I'm still doing your job, then there's no need for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that
Go find an AI agent to do it.
Yeah. The more that we can not be hands off, not be hands on, but be hands in. Like I'm here to support you. I think that's the better way.
That's great. Yeah. I think whenever people feel micromanaged, it's easy that they feel like you don't trust them.
Yeah, for sure.
Which again is one of the worst feelings to have. That your work doesn't matter, or that the way you think doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it really feels like your growth is limited as well.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to hear this and think, okay, as the leader, am I being a micromanager in the work? Here's just some questions to maybe ask and consider if you do want to have that self-assessment is, do you rewrite their work just because you would have done it differently?
Yeah.
It's venerating that your way is the way.
Yeah.
That because this is how I would do it to get to that outcome, this is how it has to be done to get to that outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that there are certain things that just might be cultural, but just think, is this cultural to the organization and it's a value that we have, or is this a preference that I have?
Yeah, that's really good.
Are you leading out of preference-driven leadership or value-driven leadership?
Yeah.
Which might need to be a separate podcast topic altogether.
I know what you're talking about. That was a great conversation
Yeah.
that we heard of a leader that had to have that conversation, that tough conversation that someone else on the team came in very strong with something, and they're like, wait, that's a preference.
Yeah.
That's not a value. Like, I promise you we're going to hold on to this value, but we're going to lay our preferences down for how we get these things done. Methodology is not as important as mission.
Yeah.
Mission trumps methodology 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, that's great. And then I think the other one, this is a great question, is does your team ask permission or do they give you updates? Permission asking might be a sign that you actually haven't handed anything off, that they don't feel empowered to be able to run in the lanes that they're supposed to in their job because they're having to ask you permission for every single thing.
Yeah, I love this quote right here. You hired me for my brain, but you only use my hands.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
Speak to that. Speak to that.
I mean, I think it's a principle that we've been talking about is that you just want me to be a doer. You don't want me to think, because if I think differently than you, then it's wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the kind of organization you're trying to build. That's not the organizations that we're trying to build. Yeah. I think whenever you are, I think you still should give clarity.
Yep.
But there's a difference between giving clarity and micromanaging. So when you are giving that clarity, think through some of the same stuff that we've already thought about. This is, what is the outcome? And do we both have an agreed definition of what winning looks like for this? What are the guardrails? So that could be budget. It could be other resources that you have that this person should be aware of. What's the deadline? When are we agreeing that this needs to be done by? And then what's the check-in point? Like, when do we want to check in just to make sure we're still on the same page about this as well?
I think that's great.
So those are just some things as the leader I would think of whenever you are giving things
I think
to your
a
team.
practical thing there, if you find yourself struggling with micromanagement, one of the healthy things you can do is build a rhythm of updates. Like, it could be a standing meeting once a week, and you have your executive team there. Hey, let's take 10 minutes, get updates on the areas that you're working on. It could be as simple as that. You're getting updates. It could be in your oversight, you get updates. But like you said earlier, like, if they're constantly feel like they have to ask you permission for every single thing, eventually you're the bottleneck, you're the lid of the organization. You're not going to get that much stuff done.
Also think just reflecting as to, why don't I trust this person to do the work? And is it because I'm a perfectionist? And is that actually a bottleneck to other parts of the organization? Or maybe there's a pattern that you need to address with that person of, again, something that's bothering you. But even just thinking through, like, why does this feel so hard to let go? I know we haven't fully fleshed out this thought yet, but I'm curious, is there some kind of like litmus test that you would give to someone to know if they're leading based off of their preferences or a value? Maybe that's for us to come back on part 3 on.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I think the clearer you are on your values, you're going to be able to empower people more, because you trust that is the values themselves are the litmus test, not the methods of how we're going to get something accomplished. And you have to just make a decision like, okay, I mean, it's a different way to do it, but I've got to trust that we have the same values, we have the same vision, and ultimately I have to trust this person with it. And like, remember there was a leader one time that we heard say this, and we've used it quite a bit, but they said they like to see themselves as, they put a frame around a blank canvas, and then they put the brush and the paint in the artist's hands, and they say the frame is, this is our vision, agreed upon vision, our values, our culture, the outcome that we're trying to accomplish with this. These are the guardrails. But at some point, you have to take your hand as the leader off the brush and put it in their hands and say, now you paint within this framework. And I'm going to trust that there's actually things in you that the reason you're on the team is because we need those things to actually paint the picture of what we're trying to accomplish. Yeah. And if you paint outside the frame, I'm going to let you know. Yeah. I'll let you know.
Because we have a culture of feedback.
Yeah, we have a culture of feedback. But I just think it's like, you just have to have extreme clarity about your values, your mission, your vision, the outcomes you want. But then at the end of the day, it comes down to decision making. I have to trust that this is the right person on my team. And if they're not, then get them off your team. Yeah. Like, that's part of leadership as well. Like, I don't think that they can do the job. Okay, great. Well, then you need to find somebody else. Or you have to ask a tough question. Am I the problem? Yeah. Am I the problem? Like, and so you just have to get to a place where you have to make that decision. So it probably didn't answer your question perfectly, but I haven't thought it through.
No, I think that's great. That's great. I love it. All right. That was number 3. Number 4.
Please be consistent. That's what they want to say.
They want to say, please be consistent. Here's what I think is that inconsistent leaders will create emotional and organizational whiplash.
Unstable.
Within the teams. You know what I was thinking of whenever we were chatting about this earlier today? We live here in Tennessee. We were talking about that before. We've had friends that have moved here from Southern California. They love living here, but one of the complaints that they always have is when they lived in Southern California, they knew that every day it was going to be about 75 degrees and sunny. So every day they knew what to expect. They knew how to show up. They knew what to wear. They knew what they needed to pack in their bag so that they could make sure that they're ready for the day. It was predictable. Living here, we just were talking about it at the beginning of this episode. Yesterday it was 75 degrees and sunny. Last night we had tornadoes. Today it's snowing. And in 3 days it's going to be 80 degrees again. So you wake up and you don't know, what should I expect today? How should I show up in the workplace today?
How should I dress?
What do I need to be ready today? And that creates some kind of whiplash that you have to every day check in. And there's nothing worse than when there's a leader and every day you have to wait till they come into the office to know what's the weather today.
Yeah, because the leader is creating an inconsistent climate.
Yeah.
Right? And they're shifty like the weather in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And the way that the leader shows up will always dictate and determine how the other people show up.
Yeah.
So if you're showing up and you're in a bad mood, you're showing up and you're triggered, you're showing up and you're frustrated because of the decision you got to make, you're showing up frazzled.
Well, then the next day,
you show up with joy, excitement, and positivity, and they're like, man, who is this guy?
And then the next day you're super down again.
Yeah. It's like, man, it's so tough, like
it's emotional whiplash that the team has to navigate you every day as part of their job.
Yeah. Your office is filled with eggshells and you're the one that's throwing them out there.
Yeah.
And your team and your staff are just wondering, what version of you am I going to get today?
Yeah.
Am I getting angry Jason? Am I getting, ambitious driven Jason, but like striving, that's driving us crazy? Am I getting, the pessimistic negative Jason today? And here's the thing. I will say, like today was not the easiest day for me. And you know that, right? I had a lot of dumpster fires I was dealing with today. It was a bad day. And I would be a liar if I said it didn't affect me at all. But I can't have that day every day.
Yeah. You're allowed to have a bad day.
Yeah.
You can't have a bad day every day.
Yeah. So I'm not saying like, just put on, what is it? Turn that frown upside down and just walk in like that's fake. I'm not saying that. Like I think God gave us emotions for a reason. We should have those. But your emotions should be great indicators, they shouldn't be leading you. And if they're leading you, they're going to start leading your team and leading your organization, and it's just going to be so completely unhealthy. I think that we want to let our feelings indicate where we're at, but they cannot drive us. I think I was telling you this, like I remember there was a season where I was coming home so frustrated with some things at work, and then I'd have things happen at home, and then I'd go to work frustrated, and it was just like, and I began to realize that there was a pattern of inconsistency, and it was all because of my emotions, getting triggered by tough days, hard circumstances, whatever. But at some point, I just had to say, I want to have a different vision for my life, the type of leader I want to be. And I want to show up in my home and in my workplace, the two environments that I'm in the most. I want to show up and I want to be a certain way.
Yeah.
I want to be a leader, and I want to be positive. I want to be faith-filled. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be cynical. I want to be driven, but in a healthy way. Like I had to get a vision of that, determine that, and then show up. And I even built some rituals in my life. I don't really do them that much anymore, but I remember I would pull up to work after having, maybe a tough few days at home or whatever, and I'd pull up and I would just take some deep breaths. I'd sit in silence and I'd exhale and I'd say, today's a new day, and I'm going to go and I'm going to lead according to the vision that I have of the type of leader I want to be in the workplace. And I also did the same thing at home, and I didn't get it right every time.
Yeah.
But I think it started with me getting a little bit of a vision of what type of leader I wanted to be.
Yeah, that's great.
Here at Sidecar Leader, we don't just develop content that we hope adds value to you. Our bread and butter is really our coaching. If you're feeling stuck as a leader, whether you're navigating growth, strategic planning, staffing decisions, or tackling your toughest priorities, our one-on-one coaching sessions are here to guide you. Together, we'll identify the strategies and steps that will take your leadership to the next level. It's time to invest in your growth because your vision and your team deserve it. If you're ready to get started, you can visit sidecarleader.com/coaching. We can't wait to work alongside of you.
No, I think what we're talking about here is like, is there emotional consistency that you display within the organization? I think another kind of consistency that people need in the organization to be able to be empowered and run well is there consistency when it comes to the decision-making filter here?
Yeah.
And is there consistency when it comes to what the priorities that are made here? There's nothing worse than when someone comes in hot and they're like, this is a priority. We've got to have it done. It needs to happen this week. Urgent. The next week, actually, never mind. We're not going to move in that direction anymore. And you feel like you've wasted time, energy. There's this like frantic notion. And now we've all of a sudden steered directions. So how can you even bring consistency to the way that you make decisions? You do a great job of this. I know that as we're making decisions for Sidecar and the church, I know what matters to you. You want to make sure, how does this impact our finances? How does this impact our calendar? And how does this impact the people on the team as well? Yeah. Those are three of the things that you're always going to ask questions about. Yeah. And if those aren't going to be healthy yeses, then it's probably going to be a no. Yeah. So even as the leader, what are your priorities? Are you consistent in making decisions around those priorities? And does your team know those things so that they can make quick and easy decisions that aren't aligned with the values
and that doesn't mean that your priorities can't change. I mean, priorities are going to change sometimes, you know.
And you might be optimizing for different things at different times.
Yeah, but I think you have to be the type of leader that has some level of a decision-making filter. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself is going to showcase consistency in the way you make decisions and the way you lead. And you're actually going to, you're training that culture with the team that you're leading. Yeah. Because they see, oh, he's not just coming in because this feels like the right decision. Yeah. That's so subjective. Yeah. You know, you're the weatherman again. It's like it feels right. And the more that you can have some level of a decision-making filter, I think you can come in and lead with more confidence and clarity, and people will follow that.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Manny Aranga, Dr. Manny Aranga.
The good doctor.
I know that as they were launching their church earlier this year, the weekend that they had for their launch, there were some massive ice storms that came through Texas. Yeah. And I remember he posted this on Instagram, and he said, I knew that in that moment, even though there were lots of emotions that I felt about wanting to launch this church this weekend, I cannot make an emotional decision here. I've got to make a mature leadership decision here. Yeah. And so I think maybe that's one of the things that you forfeit a bit as the leader is the ability to make emotional decisions. Yeah. Not that you have to put away your emotions altogether, but your emotions cannot be in the driver's seat of organizational decisions, especially when it comes to being able to lead a team well.
What do you think about the leader that's an intuitive leader? Like that's a lot of their leadership kind of gut, right? Go with your gut. Like they do have a uncanny ability to have this intuitive sense of like, I just feel like this is the right direction we need to go. Like, how do you balance that tension with, okay, that is kind of why they've been successful, but also like we need some consistency where we're not just following your feelings and your intuition, but we're following, some type of framework. Like, how do you navigate that? I mean, you have to deal with that a little bit with me.
Yeah, I was about to say you are a bit of an intuitive leader. I think I would say if you are an intuitive leader, it's okay to let your intuition be a signal. Yeah. But why do you feel that way? And can you express to the team why you're feeling this way and why that matters? And maybe 20% of the time you're not able to, and you just know this is the decision that you're having to make. Yeah. But 80% of the time, can you give a reason why and help bring people along that process and that journey with you? Because I think if all the time you're just changing it and you're like, guys, it's just, I'm feeling it. I just feel this, but you're not able to articulate why, that's when I think people start to feel like their decision or their perspective is not valued.
Yeah. I think that's a big part right there.
And that they should, I think you feel like you disengage a little bit because it's like, it doesn't matter what I think here. Mm-hmm. It's just what you feel. So just tell us what you feel.
He's going to change it anyway.
Yeah. So I'm not going to even engage here. Yeah. So I think if you are intuitive, that's okay. And that might just be how you're designed and you're wired. But can you understand your intuition a bit to articulate it to the people around you?
I think that's great. I like the 20-80. Yeah. Maybe 10-90.
10-90. Okay. 10-90. I was trying to be more gracious, but we can go 10-90.
I know I would prefer 20-80.
Yeah.
But when I was actually thinking about a lot of scenarios in the last 10 years of like church planning and startups and stuff like that, like I could count on both of my hands how many times I had this like almost like a conviction about what I was feeling like something's off with this, and we need to change this. We need to pivot from this. Rarely have I just plowed forward when the consensus in the room was opposite of what I was saying. I've tried to lead in such a way where it's like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is what my gut's telling me. I want to hear from all of you, and let's chop this up together. And 9 times out of 10, I would say that even if the consensus is different from mine, I'm like, maybe I'm not seeing something.
Yeah.
And I have to trust the team that I've built around me to see what I'm not seeing and trust that. And listen, it's a decision. Most of the decisions that we're making in our organizations are not going to bankrupt us and shut us down, most of them. But the day-to-day kind of stuff, those intuitive moments, like I think you have to have enough humility to be like, and I'm not saying I'm humble, but you have to have enough humility to be like, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And I need to trust this team. And I think that even if it was a bad decision, here's what happens. The team will know that it was a bad decision, and they'll be like,
we should listen to Jason.
We should listen to Jason when we have moments like this, and sometimes it works, I think, and the intuition piece is effective, but I think more so than not, trusting the consensus in the room, saying, hey, we're gonna figure this out together and lead it out. So
that's fantastic. That's great. Last one.
Wait, are there any takeaways right there? I'd love to give just a couple of takeaways.
Yeah. Good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Some takeaways on just practical ways you can be more consistent. I think one is, like what we just said, be consistent in your decisions. So a lot of the great organizations we lead, their decision-making filter is the vision. Does this move the vision forward? And does this actually move the needle for what's important for us? And maybe that's your maybe that's your decision-making filter, or maybe it's not your vision. But what is your decision-making filter?
Yeah.
And how can you clearly communicate that to the people around you?
Yep.
I think that would be one.
Stacking dominoes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, when you're planning on something or you're making a decision about something, you have to understand there's always a domino effect. And so just thinking through strategically, if we make this decision, what is the next domino it's going to hit and affect in a positive direction towards the goal that we're moving towards?
What's an example of that?
Yeah, I think let's just use like a church example. It's like, okay, should we do this event? Okay, well, first, what's the goal of the event? I think that's the question. Well, is it just butts and seats? Let's get as many people in the room as possible? No, that's not a good goal. Well, what is the strategic outcome that actually feeds the vision of what we have? Most churches have small groups. Right?
Yeah.
That's a big part of their vision, or a system to deliver on the vision of community. So if you're doing an event, a practical thing with stacking dominoes is like, okay, at some point in this event, it's driving everything towards getting small group leaders. So we're going to have some kind of expo that's going to get more small group leaders, because that strategic domino is going to lead to us having more small group leaders, which supports the vision, or the system that's going to deliver on the vision of helping people find community. I could give you a million different things, like, should we go do this outreach? Well, okay, yeah, we can meet these immediate needs, but what is the domino that this event's going to stack into that's going to help us move towards the goal? Well, we're going to do the event, and then we're going to get more signups for outreach small groups, right? And so it's just thinking not just about this short-term win of butts and seats or numbers or whatever, but how is it going to stack into something that's going to get us towards the vision of and the mission of what we're trying to actually accomplish.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The domino test. So be consistent in your decisions. Second, I think, is be consistent in your communication.
Yeah,
I think this is big. We've already talked about it. Priorities are important. You should try to be consistent with them, but the priorities might change as well. So when priorities change, are you consistently communicating that and communicating why they're changing? Yep. I think that's a big part. And just having people trust you is not just what is changing, but why is it changing? And then the third one is just be consistent in your emotional intelligence. Great leaders don't have weather, they create a climate.
Yep.
So how can you not be the weather that's hot one day and cold the next day? But how can you as a leader, through your own emotional intelligence, create a healthy climate for the organization to thrive?
Before you get to this fifth one, let me ask your opinion about this.
Ooh.
So we haven't talked about this, which I like. I like going off script. What are your thoughts about a leader, even like the main leader, having a 360 review related to some of these things when it comes to EQ? What's it like to be on the other side of me type thing?
We always say this. Feedback is a gift. So regardless of what seat you're in, how can you get better? And I think the only way to do that is through feedback. And especially as the leader, you're probably getting more yeses than anything else because people naturally want to try to please you. But can you get feedback into how you can actually get better from the people on the other side of you?
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of that. Now, I do think as a leader, you should weigh different people's feedback differently.
Yeah.
And understand what might their motivations be behind this feedback. And I don't think you should open it up for the entire organization to personally give you feedback. But who are the people that have a perspective of you that they've actually worked with you, so they know what you're like on a regular basis?
Maybe like spouse, your 3 closest friends, and your 4 to 5 closest people that are working with you daily.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Maybe your oversight.
Yeah, your oversight, your overseers, your board, whatever that might be. But we always say feedback is a gift. And I don't think that's an exception just because you're in the seat of a CEO or a founder. I actually think it might be more important in those environments to be able to do that. So that if you are the lid, if everything rises and falls in leadership, don't you want to get better as a leader?
Yeah.
So what a gift feedback can be.
I like that. Here's
Do you have
number
a different
5.
opinion on that?
No, I think it's great.
Okay.
We used to have to do them when I was on staff at Gateway. We did 360 reviews, and they were not always easy.
Yeah.
They always made me better.
Yeah.
So here's number 5. We'll finish with this one. I think this is a great one. This is something that your staff member wants to tell you as their boss, as their overseer. Here it is. I want to grow, not just grind. I want to grow, not just grind. In other words, like, I actually want to grow my capacity as a leader. I don't want to just be another cog in the wheel that's just grinding out this work.
Yeah.
And there's no concern or care for my development, for me to get better, for me to grow. Obviously, we've already talked about this, I think, on the last episode. It's ultimately that person's responsibility to grow themselves.
Yeah.
But I do think that we all would like to know that the person that we're working under, that they have some level of a vision and a passion to want to invest in me and develop me and grow me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I've heard someone say in your career that you'll take jobs either to earn or to learn.
Yeah. And if you get both, it's great.
Yeah. If you get both, all the better for you. You're in a great place. But you're probably going to take a job where you might be earning a lot of money because you are really good at something, or you might not make as much, but it's an opportunity for you to go learn. I think most people that really want to make a difference and that really believe in something and that have some level of like ambition of like, I want to be successful, which are people that you want on your team, are likely willing to sacrifice on the earning part.
Yep.
I'm not going to say they don't want to make money. They probably why they want to be successful is so that they can make some level of compensation behind it. But I think that they would be willing to sacrifice the earning for the learning.
Yeah.
Especially earlier on in their career.
Yeah.
And so I think
that's a growing thing right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that whenever there's a lack of growth in an organization, that there's also a lack of motivation. Yep. And so one of the biggest ways that you can motivate your employees is through opportunities to grow. And opportunities to grow don't just mean opportunities to grow to go up in the org chart, but it could be opportunities to have more impact in your current role and to coach you on skills where you can have even more impact in your current role, whether the next place you go up is at your current organization or in another organization as well.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason for that is that most employees aren't just working for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And especially what we're seeing in younger generations is they're going to work for places that they actually believe in the mission of them. And so growth at those places, I think, is even more important.
What if your team had a clear roadmap for the next 12 months on what was most important, complete with objectives, key metrics, owners, and deadlines? And not only that, but also the accountability to see the plan through. Through our team planning offsites, we're able to help you unlock and identify where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. With a focus on goals, key metrics, and actionable strategies, we'll build a plan that keeps you on track all year and provide the accountability to ensure that you execute what you planned. If you plan your work, and you work your plan will work if it's a good plan. If you're ready to set up your team for success, clarity, and a clear roadmap moving forward, you can go to sidecarleader.com/coaching, and let's make your vision a reality.
I want to say something. Oh, let's get a little uncomfortable here.
Say it.
I've worked primarily for the last 25 years in churches, and in the last 10 years worked with a lot of churches. And so I want to speak to senior pastors right now. I think that you may have staff that see you investing in things like your own care or your development, going to conferences. There's a budget that's been allotted for that. So you go to church conferences, leadership conferences. You have a Logos line item in your budget.
You got a travel budget.
You've got a travel budget. You've got all these budgets that are to develop you, because your board of trustees, your board of directors, they know that we've got to keep this person healthy and we've got to keep expanding their capacity, because as they grow, the organization's going to grow and they're going to grow the team. I think the problem is when there's a budget and thought and investment in that leader, but it stops there and it doesn't seep down and cascade down into the other layers of leadership. And I'm not saying that you should not have that. I think you should have that. But I think at that next level, you need to be thinking, well, now what am I going to do to invest in them? Do you have a budget to send them to conferences, to send them to learn from people that are doing it better than what you guys are doing, so that they can grow? Because if they grow, if they develop, it's just going to add more and more value to the organization. But it's sad to me how many churches and organizations, they invest in just the key leader, which is important, but they fail at investing in the people below that, and they just kind of expect for them to keep getting better. And then you hear statements like this: the organization outgrew them. Okay, that could be a reality, but could it be that we first point our finger at ourselves and say, did we invest in them
Did the organization
to continue
support
to
their
grow?
growth?
Yeah, and so I just think it's a really healthy thing, and I may get some pushback from that, and I'm fine with that. But I think the healthiest churches that we've seen, they have budget, resources, and even if they don't have budget and resources, they've thought creatively, how are we going to continue to develop these people below us? I know that one of the organizations I worked at, they had budget for certain layers of their leadership, at top leadership, to invest in some of these things. And then as it got to middle of the staff and lower in the staff, they created a professional development day that was the first Tuesday of the month, and you chose different courses that you can go to, and they had experts that were teaching those classes to develop them. It was totally free for that church to do that. I mean, they literally had administrative support classes and courses that all the admins in that organization could go and learn how to be a better support to the person that you're administrating for. There were courses and classes that were for people that were pastors, and how to lead effective, how to do at-home like care or palliative care, to show up and to care for someone when they're in their last days, how to lead weddings, how to do funerals, how to do, and so all these things were developing them and training them and teaching them. It didn't cost the church any money at all.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that I've been able to work in the church and outside of the church as well. And the organizations where employees are the most motivated, and I think you see the most growth, are when there's learning and development resources for employees at all stages of their careers. And I don't think it has to look the same at every level either. I think just because you as the lead pastor or the CEO or whoever you are, you have this budget for your learning development, this travel budget that you can go to conferences, you don't have to have that same budget for all of the people on your staff. But do you have something that you're giving them? I actually don't even think that you have to have a budget at all. I know one of the things that we talked about before this, and if you find yourself in this position where you want to be able to develop your team, but you don't have the budget for it, is create an asset map. All of us have relationships with people who have invested into us, or who themselves have resources that could be a gift to our team. So how can we create a map of all of the relational assets that we have and say, is there any ways that I can use this to serve my team, or that I can grow my team as well? Are there relationships that have been a gift to me that can be a gift to our team as well? And just being able to think even creatively. I mean, we live in a day and age today where there is an abundance of information. And so how can you create just banks of maybe it's resources around your values or around different priorities that you have as an organization. And you share that out with your team just to be able to continue to grow their development as well.
I think with the asset map, my mind goes towards one of my sons. He's 13 years old, and I wanted to invest in him and do like a father-son trip. And, we looked at our budget and we were like, and even our calendar, we were like, we don't have the time or the money to just pour all this into this in this season. And so my wife and I started talking about it, and she said, well, where do you have an incredible trip coming up that would be aligned with what you're trying to accomplish in these conversations you're having with him? Well, my son loves history. I just so happened to have a trip planned to DC for work, and they pay for it +1. So what did I do? I was able to take my son on a trip that I was already going to do.
Yeah.
He came to all my meetings with me and stuff. It was so funny. And then we did all this stuff around history that he wanted to do. And he had this rich experience that expanded his vision of the world and learned some stuff. And all of it was actually free. It cost us nothing because we just identified something that was on there. So it made me even think about like some of my greatest development moments when I was a young pastor was Pastor Dino. I know we talk about him all the time, but he would take me on trips as this like 23, 24-year-old kid with him, trips that he was already going to be doing where he was speaking and he knew there were other leaders, great leaders that were speaking. I found myself in rooms with some of the best church leaders in, not just in America, in the world. And he would tell me, I want you to take notes. And after we finish this, I want to process those notes with you. What did you learn? What's your big takeaway?
Yeah.
What are you going to take back that you're going to do differently now?
Yeah.
And all of it was really free. He just said, well, how am I going to do this? But then he turned around, and whenever I started traveling, he would tell me, he's like, don't take the same person on trips with you. I'd say, who's the next one?
Yeah.
Who's the next one? Who's the next Jason Laird? Who's the next youth pastor? Who's the next college pastor?
That's great.
Take them on these trips, and then, but don't just take them as a tag along. Take them and have strategic conversation with them. Get them taking notes, asking questions. Let them ask the leader questions.
Yeah.
And all of that was like, man, it was free, but it was just thinking creatively. How can we continue to invest and develop the next one?
And I think if you do that to the people on your team, they're going to find such a sense of value that you're giving them and loyalty as well, because you see something and they're going to feel like they see something in me that they want to develop, which is going to give them some sense of loyalty to you as well. And so even if you might not be able to pay them the most, but if you can really invest in their development, again, I think people are going to.
Well, I think here's one. If you're leading a church, this works. Leading a company or leading a nonprofit, think of this: when you have a consultant, a pastor, an incredible leader come in and do something for me, like let's just say it's a church where you're having a guest speaker come on a Sunday or a Wednesday, make sure that you couple that with some staff development or team development or just with your executive team where they get a couple of hours with that person. They're already in there doing that, right?
Yeah.
So have them do that. Or if you're leading a company and you have a consultant come in, don't just let them come in and diagnose what's wrong in your company. Try to get some extra hours where you can have your team in there to learn from them.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can just couple together and get creative like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so good. And I think you also have to think of it, even if there's some expense to it, is while this might be an expense, I think it's actually an investment.
It is.
Because
that's a mindset shift you have to have.
As the people in my organization get better, the organization gets better as a whole. So how can we invest not just spend money, but invest money into the people of our organization? It's
great. I love it. I hope this has been helpful, and we're going to have some more conversations kind of in this lane. I love it. So I'd love to even get feedback from people. So send in some feedback.
Yeah.
Post
something on
our social media.
And if there are questions that you have that we didn't answer, let us know. We'd love to be able to do that.
Yeah. It's so cheesy.
Is that our new signing off?
Signing off.